Hello and hi, Lucie.
Hi, Lucie.
I was just thinking about how long it's been since we last saw each other here. And we said that, well...
It was right here on this couch that we met 2 years ago and talked about CBD, about psychology.
Exactly, 2 Lucies, 2 years.
Exactly. So maybe I should introduce myself. I'm Lucie Kolarikova, I'm a psychologist and I mainly work online. I have a lot of different online programs and right now I'm launching a year-long club for women where they can come to relax, unwind, compare information. And I like to promote CBD, which is actually today's topic. That's what we want to talk about because the other Laka is here. Yes.
I'm from Zelená země, I'm also Lucka Garabášová. You can also relax with us, but probably the best thing is when these two paths are combined, as you'll soon find out for yourselves. Or more or less, we talked a lot about anxiety, stress, and mental health in the previous video. I'll even put a link to it down here now, so those who haven't seen it can check it out. And today we've come to talk about a different topic. And that topic is... exactly.
Basically, how to connect CBD and sleep and whether CBD supports sleep. And I also have a few questions for you actually as a representative of a Czech company that produces CBD products, quality CBD products. And you also sell and distribute them. And because I like to promote CBD on my social media, since I also enjoy using it and I use your CBD products in various forms, I naturally get some questions about it from time to time. So it's also about answering some questions. And there are a few quite important critical questions that have come in. Questions like whether CBD is a psychoactive substance, whether CBD is actually harmful in any way, whether it can be used with antidepressants and so on. So we have a few such questions that weren't entirely pleasant, ones I couldn't answer myself, but it's great that we're finally meeting again and can clarify them together like this.
Great, I'm looking forward to them. So Lucie, actually it also started with the fact that about a month ago, maybe 2, time really flies, we sent you something to try out. Not just sleep products, but since today we're here to talk about sleep products, or that's what we want to talk about, specifically these kinds of CBD drops for sleep. Then you also got a sleep tea from us, which we couldn't quite find right now, but since Lucie had the one she's currently using here, that's this 4% herb, and that can also be used to support sleep. So, as always, I'm curious about your experience.
Well, overall, I'll say I think I've been promoting CBD since 2020. I think that's when we got acquainted, around that time. And actually my promotion started because it just works for me, it suits me. And I need to say that as a whole. And actually I'm the kind of person who tends to be more on the anxious side. That means I've experienced panic attacks in the past. That also means, of course, problems with sleep. Problems at night, simply. Sleeping through the whole night. I've gone through long periods of anxiety. When there's a situation where a lot of responsibilities pile up on me, I also tend to slip into an anxious state. It might not be very deep or last very long, and I know how to handle it, but it always affects my sleep, and that's where CBD simply helps me. And that's actually the reason why sleep products are definitely something that work for me in my life, and overall CBD is the substance that helps me relax. As soon as it helps me relax, it also helps me sleep. That is clearly and exclusively my own experience. I don't have any other experience with CBD, and that's why I started promoting it so enthusiastically back in 2020. And specifically regarding this tea, I have it from you now. In this form, it's 4% CBD. They're regular infusion bags, so it's quite simple
to prepare.
That's also something I like about it. And I originally had them with 1.6% CBD, which means a lower CBD content, and even with that, it worked for me. So the 4% is like, it works even better for you.
Well, actually, Luca, you'll find out about that soon. She's a bit of an extremist when it comes to dosing, but she'll definitely tell us about that herself.
Whenever I go to take something and try out its effect, I really need to know what effect it has and to feel that effect.
On your own skin.
On your own skin, and really thoroughly, like in some... Maybe it's a bit extreme, but I just want to feel it strongly because then I can tell which direction we're going, what this thing is actually going to do to me. And once I find out what it does to me, then I fine-tune the dosage. For example, I might say, okay, now I'm too tired afterwards, or the effect is lingering too long, and then I end up just chilling all morning when I actually have a lot of work to do. And if I know that it's the CBD that's causing that, then I'll lower the dose in the evening. So, for me, it's always important to start with a large
dosage
so I can understand the direction of the effect. If I like the effect, then I fine-tune it to a lower dose, which for me is usually just right and actually very low.
So you actually do it the other way around, even though we always advise people to start gradually and slowly increase the dose. I say I always start from the highest, but it works and that's what matters. That's extremely important with any herb, whether it's cannabis or anything else. A person has to follow their own path the way they feel it, because it wouldn't work for you if you went from the smallest to the largest dose. You simply felt it this way and that's how you approach it. And that's probably the right attitude toward herbs and nature.
I know that even when I first read about it back in 2020, when the recommended dosage was like 1 drop, a drop for the whole day, I thought to myself, oh gosh, I don't know about that. If I'll have the patience for this, so now 1 drop, I'll test 1 drop for a month, observe what it does to me, then 2 drops, well, I'll just take 15 at once, the whole dropper, which is 30 or how many?
I think it comes out to about 25 drops.
25, and I know which direction it's going, and then I can somehow manage it and decide how much I want, but I need to find out if I'm even interested in that direction at all. But actually, I feel like for me it's a journey of trust.
It's actually really unpredictable for me. It's important to mention this both for your followers and for our customers. On the packaging of these products, you'll always read that the recommended dose is 1 drop per day. This is actually a regulation of the European Union, and it takes into account a dose called the acute reference dose. And according to this acute reference dose, the product actually reaches a certain amount of, for example, THC, because our products in particular are full spectrum. They are not psychoactive. We'll talk a bit more about that later, but I just want to point out that even though the packaging says 1 drop per day, in practice it doesn't mean that people actually take just 1 drop per day. It's always the case for everyone. This is simply how it's regulated. That's how we have to write it on the label, but it's an herb and each of our bodies is unique. So every person simply needs a different dose. And that's also why we're here, Zelena Zemlya, our advisory service. We help guide people on the path, but from there, people have to walk it more or less on their own, even though they can, of course, reach out to us at any time. For example, we can advise on how to start using it, but everyone has to try it out for themselves and find out when the effect appears.
You really have to feel it to be aware of yourself. And me, because I don't feel like doing 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops.
So I just take a whole dropper full.
But now, Lucie, we've strayed from the topic of tea. I haven't said anything specific about that yet. I actually use this 4% CBD tea, so I have 1 tea bag in the evening, and it's so calming for me that I sleep through the whole night.
And
just maybe everyone, when someone has trouble sleeping, we all have different symptoms. So for me, it shows up in the way that I never have trouble falling asleep, but then I wake up in the middle of the night. And it's more like in the middle of the night, I have an hour or 2 when I don't sleep. So that's how I would define my problem. It's not like I don't sleep the whole night, or that I never fall asleep, or that I wake up at 2 and can't get back to sleep. But I just tend to have, if anything, an hour or 2 at night when I don't sleep.
CBD actually works globally, just as you said, to help the body harmonize and calm down. And then, of course, it helps to induce proper falling asleep, which some people need and some don't, as you also correctly mentioned. It also actually helps to improve the REM sleep phase, which is an extremely important stage of sleep, because thanks to this phase, a person feels rested in the morning. At the same time, this REM sleep phase is also related to the problem you mentioned, that at some point you just wake up and can't really fall back asleep. By strengthening this REM sleep phase, people often stop waking up like that during the night.
Or I wake up, but when I have that tea, I wake up and then I fall back asleep.
Actually,
that it works there.
This falling asleep. That you don't stare at the wall for an hour, but you just curl up and fall asleep. That's great. And have you tried the drops as well?
I tried drops.
Extra? Extra drops for extra Ludzka? This
is kind of my long-term thing. That's what was worth mentioning first, because it's something I've had for a long time. And the drops, those are new for me now. I've actually only had them for about a month now.
Mainly? Yes. And
of course, I started with the droppers. So I found out that yes, I like this direction.
It does something to me.
It does something to me, like I don't even wake up at night anymore. And
it does something to me. Maybe it's time to pause here for a moment.
Yes, what does it actually do? I love the effects of CBD, but this isn't just CBD, there's also CBG here. That's actually also why it has that more sedative effect.
You actually have an extra combination there, and it contains CBD and CBG. Actually CBN as well, and also lemon balm. And because these three cannabinoids are together, which are not psychoactive, these cannabinoids, but they work together synergistically and create an even better feeling of calm sleep, falling asleep, and overall well-being. Yeah.
And now we've actually been talking about sleep, but it's also about what comes after, what happens in the morning, what happens during the forenoon. So 2 pipettes are definitely too much, because then I really feel very relaxed, like too relaxed to function well.
The next morning?
So the next morning, the whole forenoon. So 2 pipettes are a no-go. That initial trial, just so I know what it does and whether I like it. But what is really pleasant is actually waking up with that feeling of complete calm.
Rest.
And also that feeling of being well rested, feeling good and being relaxed. And when I open my eyes, I get that feeling I used to have as a child, like I'm really coming back from another world. I'm back, and for a moment I don't know where I am, which doesn't mean I'm out of this world. That means that there really is. It's like I'm finally and deeply connected to that restful sleep.
So the brain isn't working?
Exactly, the brain really shuts off and the return takes a little while. And it's really like that. I see it with my daughter too. When she wakes up, she has to look around to figure out where she is, get her bearings and settle in. And that's exactly how it is for me too. Because I know different periods, having a small child, having lots of work. And the past year has been quite challenging. A lot of things just kind of piled up. One thing after another, everything was just churning. So in this state, when there's so much going on and we can't really process it all, it shows up in the way that the brain keeps running even through the night. And so I wake up in the morning and the first thing is I open my eyes and it immediately starts up again. A lot of people know this, especially those who are going through a similar phase in life or whose nervous system is so sensitive that they don't even know any other state than this one. That constant feeling. We're basically always on alert, but at certain times really anyone can experience this. And this is something that disconnects me from that actually makes it so I'm not on alert.
I think it's wonderful, like an experience before sleep actually for the child's sleep, so it's really beautiful, so pure and sincere. So we definitely thank you for sharing this experience as well.
Yeah, and then what happens is that the next day I go back into work things again, and now the things that might have made me nervous a month ago, well, they're still here after a month, for example. But now just the fact that I'm entering into it. First, I'm well rested, and second, I have that pleasant feeling of waking up and that I really disconnected from everything for about 7 to 8 hours. So suddenly, when I approach it, it's completely different because there's that regeneration, you can feel the recovery. So that's it. I think that for everyone, and now mainly women, but of course men too, but I work a lot with women, so I want to say for every mom who at night still has kids needing something from her, is dealing with work matters, planning a vacation, handling things like, I don't know, during the holidays, the kids are at home, not at school, or she's renovating the house with her husband. They're dealing with something, some everyday worries, daily routines, or maybe they're going through a crisis, so it all just piles up. And so for every such woman, and of course, as I said, men too, this is just great because it's an opportunity to really regenerate, to truly disconnect from your own issues, and the mind, it's capable of handling it. It actually only takes about 7 to 8 hours for it to regenerate. So it's an opportunity when we can disconnect from our own stuff and when our brain simply isn't running on it. And that's enough for us to be able to function for another 16 hours again.
In that mode. There's a reason people say that the morning is wiser than the evening, and with cannabis, that's especially true.
All right, Lucie, I have a question for you. As I mentioned at the beginning, when I posted about CBD on my profile, there was some critical comments saying that CBD is psychoactive, that Czech legislation is circumventing it or actually turning a blind eye to it, but that it's psychoactive and that even toxicology has confirmed it. Unfortunately, I didn't get any information about which toxicology it was, whether in our country or another country, or exactly what was meant. But I want to ask you about this topic of psychoactivity, because for me it's important to know when I'm promoting or recommending something.
And to be able to answer questions about it. So it's really important to be able to answer this. As I said, I have a feeling that some terms got a bit mixed up there. And honestly, I'm not even surprised, because when it comes to cannabis these days, it's not just about CBDA, HHC, HHCA, and so on. There are over 100 cannabinoids known in cannabis. More and more will keep appearing. A big topic right now is actually HHC, and I kind of think that this comment was directed specifically at HHC, for example. HHC is actually produced in a laboratory, and its effects are truly psychoactive. Unfortunately, HHC is allowed here, even though it was supposed to be banned by the government this July. It has remained legal for us as a company. It's quite incomprehensible because it really is a psychoactive substance. No one has properly studied its effects, whether on the body, the mind, or its side effects. Simply no one knows what it will do to people in the long term. So, honestly, I really think this was more aimed at HHC. It's also interesting, for example, that the HHC market over the past year is 10 times bigger compared to CBD. What has this actually cost? Unfortunately, people want it, unfortunately they buy it, and unfortunately this is exactly the kind of substance that's freely available even in vending machines, but it definitely shouldn't be confused with CBD. CBD, its effects are mainly anti-inflammatory, pain relieving, and it helps support sleep and recovery. It also works great for things like vitality. Yes, for epilepsy, it actually helps reduce seizures. For children with autism or ADHD, it helps them, for example, to start speaking, to calm down a bit, and to have fewer outbursts of anger. And of course, in animals, it also has a wide range of effects similar to those in people, with minimal side effects. When I say minimal, I mean things like diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. But this only happens if someone takes an extremely large dose. I
didn't experience any side effects at all from the treatment.
This could already be considered quite a large dose. And for example, the drug Epidiolex has been studied, which is actually the only officially approved medication by the European Council for the treatment of epilepsy using CBD. And the recommended daily dosage there is equivalent to someone here drinking 10 bottles of 10% CBD oil. And up to this dosage, it is considered safe by the European National Authority. So even from this perspective, I would like to advocate for CBD so that people try not to confuse it. CBD is definitely not psychoactive. It does not produce any intoxicating effects. THC, on the other hand, is psychoactive. In our products, the amount of THC is kept at a level that is not psychoactive, but still therapeutic. This level is 0.3% in the Czech Republic. And then, as I mentioned, HHC, really don't confuse it. It's something entirely different. It's something else.
So do you think that when the lady wrote that CBD is psychoactive and said, "Lucie, how can you promote this?" she's just confusing it with something else?
I think she confused it with HHC. And if not, then I would really be interested to know what her source is. And unfortunately, as you said, you never got an answer about where the information actually came from. And of course, not every source can be considered relevant. But if it really was a relevant source, I would like to know about it. She can also feel free to contact us directly as manufacturers, and we would be very happy to discuss this topic in some way. We are open to any new information, of course, but this would be quite a fundamental piece of information, which definitely hasn't reached us yet in the CBD market.
I know that you've been here for a long time, even back when you really had to tiptoe around CBD and be very careful about how you talked about it, which nowadays isn't necessary anymore, since many doctors have come out in support of it. But back then, when you really had to tread carefully, you were very diligent about keeping an eye on the legislation.
That's true.
That's really how I feel that you do this seriously, that you really do it well, that you're not just one of many companies, but that you really do it in a way that I, as someone who promotes this, can rely on the information you give me. So I really did have that trust. And I'm very glad that you explain it like this, both for me and for the viewers. Because I also perceive that just the fact that it's hemp already creates the impression that it's marijuana.
It's weed. And I'd like to add here, for example, that when it comes to packaging, labels, writing, on the website, product descriptions and so on, we always make sure that everything is legislatively correct and in order. There is actually something called the on-hold list, which is a list of claims approved by the European Council that one can make about cannabis. It doesn't exist for CBD, but it does exist for hemp oil and hemp seeds, which are actually present in that CBD oil because the content is actually hemp oil, which comes from hemp seeds. And that's why, for example, only a limited number of effects can be stated on the packaging of CBD oil. But when someone asks us directly how it is, We answer exactly according to our own experience, whether from our hemp counseling or, of course, we also rely on statements from doctors, especially now when in June there was a threat of a CBD ban. Suddenly a number of opinions on the matter came out. What effects CBD actually has, and there were truly knowledgeable people involved. Again, there were some doctors, professors. Many of them stated that they use it in their practice.
That
they explicitly stood up for it. Exactly. And
they openly said that they stood against that ban.
Exactly. So there's no longer such a big reason to hide the real therapeutic effects of CBD, but even so, we still wanted or want to remain serious, and that's one of the reasons why, for example, we specifically don't have HC, which we talked about with the psychologist, in our assortment at all, and why we don't offer it to customers at all. Our approach is not for people to have some kind of psychoactive
experience
and for a moment exactly leave their body, then come back and not know what will happen next. That's not what we're about. Our path is strictly therapeutic. We simply want to help people, and that's what we want to leave behind as our legacy.
Lucie, one of the comments I got on social media about CBD was that if it calms you down, helps you sleep better, and relaxes you, then it must be psychoactive. Logically, this would mean it's psychoactive. I'd like to ask you now to explain these terms. What does psychoactive actually mean?
And
if you could once again briefly summarize the manifestations of psychoactive effects and at the same time the effects of CBD.
For example, if someone, even in old age, really did smoke a joint, they might have experienced what psychoactive effects are. It's basically a state where the person is not aware of their own consciousness. We could say that we don't control our own mind. We are disconnected from our own body, we don't communicate with it. It can also be like when you've had a bit too much alcohol. Even this is how you can describe the psychoactivity of cannabis. Whereas CBD, non-psychoactive CBD, because CBD is not psychoactive, acts on the endocannabinoid system, which every mammal has. And this system influences temperature, it influences pain. CBD simply supplies plant cannabinoids to the system so that the system starts working again. Therefore, it doesn't act psychoactively to calm us down. No. It just replenishes CBD in the system we have in our body. It works, and for some reason, it stops working. With that drop, I supplement the plant cannabinoid, it kicks in and starts working again, so to speak.
You're taking something natural to your body.
Exactly, you said it beautifully. That's why I was searching for the right words here.
I don't know if I read it from you, I don't think so. I think it was somewhere else. CBD is even present in breast milk.
That was from us.
So that was from us that
it's present there.
Even in breast milk. And when a baby drinks that milk, has a good drink, it becomes beautifully calm. And that it might not be just because its tummy is full, but that
there are those
cannabinoids there which simply relax the baby. And the baby feels wonderful, feels blissful.
That's right, it's confirmed by a medical study. I think it originated in America, exactly that. But in the article, which also will provide it so you can all read for yourselves, that actually babies, when they are breastfed by their mothers, are already receiving cannabinoids which have been discovered in breast milk.
So, if we now distinguish the effects of CBD from those psychoactive effects, to which I would definitely include some hallucinations,
or
often experiencing a loss of their sense of time.
Coordination, loss of coordination, exactly.
Yeah, and that kind of, I thought that 10 in the evening was 4 in the morning. Well, that...
Unlike CBD, this felt psychoactive.
In play, and CBD doesn't do that. So if we distinguish it from those psychoactive effects, once again, if you had to summarize, what are the effects of CBD?
The main effect of CBD is anti-inflammatory. That's probably its most well-known property. It supports quality sleep, whether it's falling asleep, waking up during the night, or just the phases of sleep itself. It also acts as a pain reliever, so it's widely used by people, whether they have back pain or suffer from arthritis or arthrosis. And the reason I just stumbled over my words is because I suddenly remembered that this product is actually perfect for this topic right now, Lucie. We were thinking about when to bring it out. Now's the right time for it, because we were talking about pain, and I'll get back to those effects in just a moment. But specifically for pain, whether it's different types like really back pain, neck pain, or even, as you mentioned, when you had pain
in your wrist.
That's exactly where these CBD patches are amazing, which are one of the new products we have in our range. The patches are actually vegan. One patch lasts on the body for 24 hours. The CBD is released directly into the skin. That means if your wrist hurts and you take the oil, the CBD first has to pass through your digestive tract. The absorption isn't perfect, and not all of the active ingredients actually reach your wrist. It's different when you either apply CBD gel directly to your wrist or stick on a patch. It also works great for me to relieve neck tension from working at the computer. Let me go back to its effects. CBD acts on pain. It also helps against seizures. These epileptic seizures can have any origin, that's not really important. What matters is that it always works against seizures. It supports vitality. And by supporting vitality, it also slightly improves people's mood. They are more balanced, more at ease. Muscle tension, stress, nervous
system. It generally relaxes the nervous system, and that has an impact in many ways because a lot of diseases, a lot of symptoms of any kind.
It permeates everything. It affects everything, even sleep. So even though I'm here, it directly affects sleep, and what's really important is that it simply works on stress, on the psyche, and even, for example, against pain, because many people who can't sleep have some kind of nighttime pain or suffer from anxiety. So that's just because not everyone is able to say, I can't sleep because I have anxiety. So it's simply stated that it also works for sleep, but actually it's for those secondary problems that cause insomnia.
Yeah, everything related to the nervous system is somehow interconnected.
Exactly. And
when the nervous system relaxes, it relaxes in many different ways. If I
put it simply now. And what also comes to mind with CBD, of course, is its effect on hormonal balance. So women like to use it during menopause or when they have strong PMS, when it really affects them a lot, so they use it. But also, for example, with seniors, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, CBD can actually help to alleviate the symptoms of these diseases. It helps to fight them, even though these illnesses are incurable, but the symptoms can simply be suppressed with CBD. And
I also had a question on my profile about how it is with antidepressants. And that's also an interesting topic, whether it can be taken when someone is on antidepressants, whether it can be combined.
We have customers who use them together, and we always recommend taking at least a 2-hour break between supplementing with CBD and taking medication. If that's not possible, because I understand sometimes people are rushing to work and just don't think about it, then ideally at least try to keep an hour's gap so that the effects don't overlap too much in the body. The body needs time to process the medication just as it needs time to process the CBD. So ideally take them with some time apart, but it is definitely possible to use them together. And we have plenty of customers who do it this way. The only situation where we really raise a warning finger and say, go ask your doctor, is with blood thinning medications. For example, medications like warfarin or even medications for low blood pressure, because CBD generally also lowers blood pressure a bit, so that could potentially be a problem. We have customers who use them together, but that's usually after consulting with their doctor. Then, for example, a customer who has low blood pressure and uses CBD for migraines, which are headaches, will monitor their blood pressure more regularly. If someone is taking blood thinners, they might schedule more frequent checkups to keep everything under control, but it's all manageable.
But in the end, it is really just simply an herb. So therefore, you need to try it out, consult with your doctor, give it a try, and not get scared or say, well, it didn't work for me right away, so it doesn't work. Or the effect surprised me, so I got scared and won't touch it again, I'll just throw it away. Instead, you should approach it with trust, as something you need to experiment with, because without that experimentation, it really doesn't work. You don't have to go to such extremes as I like to do, but simply try it out and give it the space and time it needs.
I'd just like to add one last thing on this topic, for example, regarding the doctor. We also encounter situations where I come in, and this could be a doctor, but it could also be a veterinarian, because our drops as veterinary products are very helpful for animals as well, where the doctors are not open to it because they may not want to treat using natural remedies. And in such cases, of course, we have, for example, cannabis counseling, where we provide advice to everyone, regardless of whether they bought from us or have another brand. We offer guidance on how we would recommend using it, for instance.